Hi, this is Ze'ev Rivlin, and today we're going to talk about how to use GenAI to boost your business. So the agenda will be first a little background on GenAI and specifically its business applications. We'll look at key performance indicators or KPIs, a way to measure the impact, and of course, the return on investment. I'll present a 5-step formula for success, a few tips on how to select a consulting firm to help you with your initiative, and then a call to action. So GenAI is on the move. I'm sure you know this already. 96% of boardrooms have GenAI on their agenda. The adoption rate in 2023 was 6%. This quadrupled in 2024 to 24%. This from a study from Capgemini. And 2025 is likely to be much higher. So GenAI in the 2020s is like the internet and websites were in the 1990s. Those that didn't get in the game probably don't exist anymore. So the cost of inaction will be high, but there's also an urgency to act quickly in order to lead and be most competitive. So what is GenAI? Well, GenAI is the flavor of AI that is generative. That is, it generates new content. That content can be text, it can be images, it can be software. Common applications, you're all very familiar by now already with chatbots. You've probably played with ChatGPT a lot. There are coding assistants that help to generate code. GenAI can be used to generate content, but can also be used to summarize content like reports. And your goal is to transform your business with generative AI. So I'll go over the process, which is about defining the strategy, establishing goals, making sure that that first POC is successful, and then really enabling this company-wide transformation. So let's look at ROI. And here's a study from IDC. And you can see on the left some of their results. For every dollar invested, $3.70 back. Additionally, some information on the right. Deployment was in less than 8 months. Value realization, approximately a year and a month. And they found also that productivity was the 43% of the 4,000 business leaders and AI decision makers that were interviewed said that productivity had the greatest ROI. So what are the business impacts of GenAI and some of the KPIs? So here are 6 potential areas to apply GenAI. It could be to improve your go-to-market strategy. It could be in the area of productivity. And here an example where Chime Medical Center used Copilot to improve doctors' productivity. So doctors write up notes after a meeting with a client, with a patient, and that took about an hour. And with Copilot, this time was reduced to 15 minutes. So a 75% improvement in productivity. Customer satisfaction. So an example here from National Westminster Bank, they used a chat bot and they were able to improve customer satisfaction by 150%. So we want to have these measurable impacts. Can also be applied in decision making. Very important to have competitive advantage. Tasks that may have taken 2 months before could take 2 hours. So you really want to make sure that you are there. And then cost reduction. So becoming more efficient and streamlining operations or automating tasks that are quite simple and tedious. Okay, so here's a 5-step formula for success. The first step is laying down the foundation, and that really begins with data. And data governance, who can access the data, what they can do with it, what they can't do with it. We want to prepare the data. We want to have the infrastructure in place, and we want to have the tools, a lot of which will be third-party tools, and yeah, some in-house talent as well as the supplementing talent from our partners. Number 2, once we have this foundation, let's look at our business goals, and we'll identify where we're going to apply GenAI, and we'll look at various use cases. And at this point, we can have an initial strategy overview, or we can say this is our overall strategy, but we'll finalize that later on in the process. So in number 3, we'll prioritize the use cases based on how easy they are to implement, and what is their business impact. And then from that, we will eventually select our first GenAI POC. Very important, because this is where everybody's going to look to see if there's success that we can follow up and invest more. We will set performance goals. We'll iterate until we meet those goals, and then we will scale and actually deploy. And then in 5, we'll go to now establishing a crisp strategy with a roadmap. And we'll look at things like change management and culture, which will be very important as we move forward with generative AI. So first, establishing the foundation. We talked about data governance. We will collect the data and consolidate it, and we'll make sure that the data is of high quality, because garbage in, garbage out. If the model gets bad data, it's going to be a bad model. And we need to look at issues like privacy, trustworthiness, security. We need to match various compliances depending on what industry you're in. Those things are very important to be looked at from the beginning. On the infrastructure side, we'll select our deployment target. It can be one of the CSPs. It could be on-prem. It could be a hybrid solution. And in addition to the compute aspect, which we're always thinking about, we need to also make sure we have high-performance data storage and robust networking, because if those two parts are slower, then they will dictate the overall speed, regardless of how fast the compute is. And then, as mentioned before, we'll get the proper tools and some in-house talent to supplement the talent we get from our partners. On the second step, we define our business goals. And here you have some examples. We may want to be more competitive on the market using GenAI. We may want to use GenAI to reduce costs or increase productivity. We may use it in our customer engagement with chatbots that you're probably very familiar with. We may even want to use it to improve our decision-making by pulling together a lot of data and making some recommendations that we can think about. And here, as I said, we'll have our initial thoughts on the overall GenAI strategy, which could include all of these, but then eventually we'll be sort of starting with just one. So in step 3, we'll now prioritize our GenAI use cases, and we'll look at measurable KPIs. So we want to be really clear about measuring what will be tangible business outcomes. And then from there, trying to find cases where we have a high chance of success, we believe we can implement pretty quickly, and we can get some visible results. And finally, high business impact. So we want to see where we can have revenue growth as a result, maybe cost reduction, maybe both. And that brings us to our number 1 in the priority list, our first GenAI project. And this is really so important, because this is the one that the whole company will look at this and say, is this an area we want to invest more in? Is it worthwhile? Does it work? And so on. And so we define our POC, again, clear goals and metrics. And then we move into selecting the model that we want to use, maybe one of the off-the-shelf big models. Maybe we want to do some fine-tuning in our methodology, and so on. We have our project plan with budget and timeline and resources, and now we go about running our POC. We test, we measure, and we iterate until we reach our performance goals, which could be things like accuracy, latency, efficiency, and so on. And then finally, once we have reached those goals, we can go about deploying and scale a successful solution. And I encourage you to see my blog, GenAI POCs in the First Mover Race, to understand a little bit better how to maximize the POC success. And with that, we can now lay out, maybe a 1 or 2 year plan based on the prioritized use cases that we had, and then also looking at more like a 5-year, strategy. A few tips on selecting a consulting company to help you in your journey. Technical expertise, IT infrastructure and data, but also AI expertise. Strategic partnerships, so it's nice to work with a consulting company that already has partnerships with the leading CSPs. Security focus is critical, because you're very sensitive about your data. You want to make sure that your partner is also sensitive to that point, helps you to meet the compliancy requirements, and also implement risk mitigation. And then finally, a consulting partner that will customize solution tailored to your business needs. So the call to action is, have a discovery session to identify your unique GenAI opportunities, have a strategy workshop to map GenAI to the business goals and prioritize, as we said, and then selecting that top priority usage to do a POC as the first implementation. And that'll get you on your way. Thank you very much. Please feel free to reach out to me at Ze'ev Rivlin on LinkedIn, and please do put comments in the comment section below.